I need to hide first. I'm gonna take a moment, let me cover myself in soap so nobody can see me. Sounds like bullying.
Kind of.
Hearing these stories absolutely changed my life.
No, but for real, and I think in a lot of cases, like, legitimate concerns that people have, where they're actually like, I am here in treatment because I want to recover. I'm desperately trying.
Hello, welcome again to Eating Disorders Off Topic, second episode of the year into February. I am super happy, Joy. We are doing monthly episodes, as we've been doing, but we're releasing them monthly, which is super exciting, which allows us to do cool things like have guests in a timely manner. So welcome to Eating Disorders Off Topic. I'm Adam Pope, along with Joy Nollenberg, and we have a special guest not for Valentine's Day, but it's a little bit after Valentine's Day. So I would like to welcome Austin Lucas, singer-songwriter, with us today. So hello, Austin.
Hi.
So we've got Austin on here because I've been a fan for his music for quite a while, and that's basically my only reason. Also, I think he's been a great advocate for opening up about mental health vulnerabilities and body image issues as well. We were talking before recording about specifics of the recording industry that wanted him to focus on a certain part of his body or his image and kind of how that was affecting him. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Austin?
Yeah, so I think that I came into the spotlight, so to speak, I should say, about 2008. Like my first record came out as a solo artist in 2006, and my second in 2007. And then I released this record with Chuck Reagan as a collaboration called Bristle Ridge, and went on the Revival tour, which was kind of a huge success in the folk punk world. And I was probably I would say somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds heavier than I am right now, and and basically I went from being somebody who like was just kind of a punk guy uh, who had been playing in mostly squats and DIY spaces and stuff like that, with mostly a very supportive community and not very much of an online community, uh, to somebody who all of a sudden was having articles written about him online and in magazines or whatever, like sort of almost overnight. And um, one of the first things that happened was I logged in thinking, oh, awesome, they're talking about me. And I remember really distinctly, it was just after the first Revival tour in 2008. And like one of the first things I read, it was like in a YouTube video that somebody had taken, and they said, it's too bad that he's so ugly. He because he sings really well. He's really talented, you know. They basically said it's too bad that he's so gross, or because he won't go anywhere, basically, because he's so gross. And obviously, that was fucking awful. And that wasn't the first time. It wasn't, or that was the first time, but it wasn't the last time. And I had like a very specific set of body issues already. Because I had gained a lot of weight pretty quickly when I was in my late 20s. Um, I had my first real uh, brush with a serious mental health disorder when I was living in the Czech Republic the last couple of years that I was living in Prague. And those were the years of 2006 until 2008. And um, I had been in a band that was a very known anti-fascist, anti-racist punk band in the Czech Republic, and we were getting attacked by Nazis, like fascists in the Czech Republic knew who we are, and you know, our gigs were being attacked, and people coming and going from our gigs were being attacked, and I never was attacked personally, um, but like the lead singer of our band was attacked repeatedly, um, and as a result, I sort of developed a very specific disorder based out of fear,
Hmm.
and I stopped going out hardly at all, unless like I was going with a group of people, and like I was scared even a lot of the time to go to the store, and like all this kind of stuff. So I instead of like walking around the city, and I always been like a sort of like a what chubby guy or whatever, and I went from being like a sort of chubby guy to being like an obese guy, because of course my eating habits didn't get better as I became sedentary, they became worse, and I was also drinking a lot, and then like you know as I as my sort of star kind of rose, uh I started reading about how fucking gross I was, and it really it did damage, and I would say that like that period of time sort of set the stage for a series of years where I was really twisted and angry, and and my body dysmorphia, my comfort level as a human being.
Hmm.
Like I had been open as being at the time bisexual for probably, I don't know, uh, 6 years or something like that
Hmm.
in 2008. And it caused me to closet myself, you know, um, to try to be a bit more masculine, to be a bit more like good old boy, and like,
So
to
you
put
would say
forth
that like you were
this.
open with yourself about being bi, but not so open like publicly.
I mean, I was open, I was pretty much out, at least to all of my friends.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like until I was like, even my brother knew. And, I never told my mom or my dad, but it wasn't, it's like, uh, it wasn't enough of a part of my identity that it felt like it was like super important. It's like so what if I like to have sex with men sometimes?
Hmm.
If I realized that like I wanted to be in a serious relationship with one, I figured I would just broach that subject if that came about,
Hmm.
like I would deal with it then. But I wasn't like, it didn't seem like a conversation that was like necessary. Like I didn't feel closeted. If my mom had asked me about it, I would have just probably told her directly,
Yeah.
like straight up. But as a result, from the ages of about like, uh, I would say 29 until, you know, probably, I mean, I guess I came out as being pan more than a year ago. Uh, but yeah, like, yeah. So from 29 until maybe like 2 years ago at the most,
Hmm.
like I was basically closeted, overall. And that was as a result of me feeling the effects of being marginalized as a beta male.
Hmm.
Um, Whenever I entered into conversations with like other, like, artists, like, or more like alpha people, I always felt like I was kind of like spoken over, and that I was like kind of treated as like a second,
Yeah.
like class person, which I know is basically how women feel all the time. And as a result, I uh, tried to overcome those things with several different, like tactics.
Hmm.
And one of them was by being like, yeah, I'm not into, men. I would even sometimes say like, yeah, I tried it, but I wasn't into it. I'm straight as they can be. You know what I mean? Like, like. because I tried it out and I didn't like it, so whatever,
Yeah. Would you
like.
say that it's had an effect on like your confidence or body image, or played a role in your your size or the way you eat?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely, because there was a time in my life where I didn't get like I didn't feel like I had any love, you know. And the only things that gave me any amount of like uh, that endorphin rush that like made me feel like I had any worth was eating, which I immediately felt guilt about,
Yeah.
um, drinking and using drugs, which made me feel like shit the next day, and sex, which like really uh, took me a long time to realize just how like much damage I did to myself mentally, by being overly promiscuous, and how much damage I did to other people, like because of that particular aspect of my like, like my disorder, you know.
Hmm.
So, you said like, what's the worst present that anybody ever gave you for Valentine's Day? And I thought to myself, chlamydia? Like, like I think I actually remember like I went on a Tinder date with somebody like on Valentine's Day, and we were both single, and we were like, yeah, let's go out. And it was a really nice, like good night. We hit it off really, really well. And like we got, a little bit drunk, and we ended up having sex without a condom. And like, I got chlamydia from this person. You know what I mean? Like, and it was like, yeah, like, and I know that that wasn't a purposeful gift, and it's like totally being
Hmm.
like, it's flippant, and it's like sort of, shitty to say that, because I don't think of them as being a bad person. They didn't mean to give me
Yeah.
chlamydia. They weren't like, here you go, Dick. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, it's just like, and I know that it's like, I don't know, it's definitely not the nicest thing to say, but it's like, that was where my head went, because it's like so much of my life in that period, especially,
Hmm.
I was so, focused on this, like, I would say, holy trinity of things that weren't helping me at all, but were giving me like momentary, like pieces
Hmm.
of, like validation, or, like a reprieve. Like so many people, I mean, if you talk to people with mental health disorders across the board, you're going to find that they have so many different, like, unhealthy coping mechanisms that, like manage to work. And I don't even want to say unhealthy coping mechanisms, because for some people, some of those mechanisms might be healthier than they are, like when they were to me, But like that direct, like, repeated viewing of how I was unworthy and how I was disgusting from the outside world, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely sent me into like a shame spiral, which caused me to eat more,
Hmm.
caused me to drink more, caused me to feel like I needed to like get that validation and have sex more with like different people, like those,
Oh, that's so hurtful to
it's,
think about. Like, I I'm the type of person who like if somebody said something about me like 5, 6, 10 years ago, I'm like, oh, remember that time that person said something, and it'll just like stick in my brain. I'm like, oh, I forgot. Like, oh, that like it just comes up at times, and I can't
mhm.
imagine what it's like to have that like out there. To have like that cyberbullying experience to where like, oh, if I want to feel down about myself, or if I feel like I need that extra nudge to take a drink, I can just like go to that website and pull it up and immediately like feel bad about myself and get that like terrible feeling back. It's like, oh, that would feel.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing is that like I would even get like, fucking almost 5-star reviews that people were like, this dude's songs, his writing is incredible. This record is amazing. The production is amazing. And like also have them talk about how gross I was and make jokes about it and shit. And like I had a dude call me that say that I looked like your disgusting like coworker who stole your lasagna from like the lunchroom. You know what I mean? Like the pimply faced, like, fat coworker. And like he called me a lasagna filching D&D nerd in the fucking interview, and also said that it was one of the best records that of the year.
In an interview?
No, I mean in the review. It's
Oh,
a
in the
review.
review.
Sorry,
Okay,
in a review of my record, he was like,
how do
"This is
you?
one of the best records of all year. Also, this dude is disgusting." And it's like, cool,
Oh,
thanks. You
So
know.
the thing that's kind of jumping out in my mind right now is like, on the flip side, we have artists like, for example, like Lizzo, where like that's her
Mhm.
calling card is like, um, she's in a larger body and she's like, people tell me I shouldn't be in a larger body, and because I'm doing it, everybody loves me. So like, what do you think is the difference that like where is there kind of a double standard, or how does that, or is it maybe just different genres of music, or I don't know. Do you have thoughts about that?
It's a different era.
Yeah.
Like honestly, uh, I came around at a time when almost nobody was doing music that I was doing in like the scene that I was doing it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing it at a time when like it was still fully acceptable to tear people down for those types of things.
hmm
And Lizzo is a beneficiary, and I'm very happy for her. I'm fucking like I don't have any, you know what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
feelings of like anger that other people get to benefit from something that I had to walk through and take.
hmm
You know what I mean? Because I know that she's also taken a fuckload too. You know what I mean? Like, but like I came about at a time when like nobody was really uplifting people for, you know what I mean, like for just being themselves. And when it wasn't a thing that like people would say like, oh, it's cool that this person isn't like that. It's cool that they're different. You know what I mean? Like, and that, like honestly, people used to tell me they're like, it's too bad that you didn't like become known in the age before the digital age, before people were taking photos at shows and videos at shows and were online all the time with all this stuff, because then you could have just disseminated the media that you wanted to disseminate with the pictures that you wanted to disseminate, and people could come to the shows and see that you were overweight but also just be completely pulled in by like, you know what I mean, like your concert and like your music and your voice and all this stuff and your songs. And like it made me feel so shitty because I think that that person was trying to help me, and I know that like that
Mm-hmm.
people have really good intentions, and I like, and
hmm
honestly, like I'm not mad at that person,
Mm-hmm.
like, but it's like when people say those kinds of things, it's like it makes you be like fuck,
It's like they're still
like
trying to say like you should hide yourself, which is not that helpful.
yeah, exactly. It's like if
Yeah.
you would have come like if you had shown up at a time when like you could hide yourself enough from people, you would have just been famous anyway because you're that good, but you can't. And so, sorry.
Do you feel like the folk punk scene has an expectation of being more open about things, or a little
No.
more closed,
Depend
or just like I don't know where anarchists land on the LGBTQ issues, or if it's
well, the
just like
anarchist
stuck
land
in their
on human
ways.
issues. No, no, no. Okay, look. Folk punk. Okay, let's go ahead and dissect this into two categories. All right, you have folk punk that like is coming from like a DIY anarchist perspective, or like leftist perspective and stuff like that. And those kids, like a lot of them are really really great. I mean, like some of the founders and some of the people who made it really a big deal over the last 20 years turned out to be really horrible abusers, and definitely were full of shit. But that scene generally is much more geared towards a certain, you know what I mean, like set of ideals that are much more welcoming, but still maybe they prefer artists that are better looking anyway. Like because everyone has these, like the bias that, our unconscious bias. I'm sorry, my brain is not functioning right now, but everyone has their unconscious bias, and so whether or not we realize it, a lot of the time people prefer someone who looks good to them, to their eyes. I mean, skinny privilege is a real thing that I understand now that like I never fucking understood before. And now I'm like, oh yeah, like I totally see that. But like, and then so my point is that there's the folk punk that comes from that angle, and then there's the folk punk that comes from the genre that I got adopted into, which is the scene with Chuck Reagan and and Tim Berry and Lucero
Hmm.
and and okay, there is nothing wrong with those people. They're all cool people, and some of them have really great politics. Okay, but their politics is not their main focus, and
Yep.
and a lot of their fandom comes out of like what I would call mall punk fandom. Okay, because like as a DIY anarchist punk since I was like a teenager, I grew up thinking that bands that were on Epitaph and Fat were sellout mall punk bands, right? And don't get me wrong, I like a lot of those bands. I like a lot of the people in those bands, but like their fan bases and themselves as people are fucking totally different. The fandom of those groups has a lot of cool people for sure, but there are a lot of very centrist and very right wing people and people who prescribe to very heteronormative values and not only that, but there's a lot of like very like masculine, kind of like imagery and stuff like that. And no offense, this is no stank on Chuck because I think Chuck's one of the kindest, sweetest, most open people that ever existed in the history of humankind. But like,
For sure.
he's a carpenter. He's got a big beard. He wears he looks like a lumberjack, and he's a professional fisherman, a professional carpenter. He's, constantly smoking meat and like hunting and doing shit that like man shit. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that stuff by itself, but there's a certain fandom that attaches themselves to that like that, you know, like that are shitty people. And you know what I mean? And unfortunately, not everybody who hunts and fishes, and likes to make homemade barbecue are cool people. There's a bunch of them that fucking suck, and there's a bunch of people who like the idea of that aren't even into that stuff, who just see this like masculine persona and they attach themselves to it. And
Mhm.
you know,
You've taken a
I
lot of that heat on your Facebook page as well when posting, anti-racist Black Lives Matter stuff.
Mhm.
Can you speak to how maybe you've handled that now, and would you have handled situations like that differently in the past?
um I would have been a lot louder a lot sooner. That's the only thing I'll say.
Okay.
I always assumed that if you listened to my lyrics and like paid attention to how I wrote, that you would probably have a pretty good idea of what my politics were like. And I apparently could not have been more wrong. And I will say directly that I didn't lose a lot of those folk punk fans. You know what I mean? Like in that shuffle, what I lost were like country music fans
Mm,
who had like come towards me because I was like, before like Sturgill Simpson or any of those guys were releasing, like records, I was already putting out country records that were like being pushed forth, you know what I mean? Like into like, more of like a mainstream market via those channels. And I definitely also, a lot of the people from the punk scene, they didn't like it because it was too country. Straight up, they were like, punks were like, he's too country. I don't like it. I'm not into it. I don't get it. A
mhm.
lot of those punks now love Sturgill Simpson, love Tyler Childers, love Chris Stapleton, love Jason Isbell, like all that stuff. They're like Coulter Wall, all these people, they're like super, super into it. But when I came, they were like, nope, they weren't ready. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, but
Can you,
it's like I got the stank from that too,
is it easy to
so
put a pin on that and say, like, maybe, like, would you attribute that to your image or your record company saying, no, this isn't your scene? Or was that before weight had been a thing?
mm, no, I mean, uh, weight was a thing from the beginning
Yeah.
of my solo record career,
Do you
like
feel
my
like
solo career. Yeah.
confronting, I mean, there probably aren't the same number of like bullies now as far as like weight stigma, or would you say they're still out there, or and do you confront them the same way as before?
Uh, well, I don't experience weight bullying because I now am the proud beneficiary of skinny privilege.
Hmm.
So, and I don't really, honestly, like I don't see it as often as I used to. I don't see people, for example, using the R word, like as freely as they used to. I just don't see as many people engaging in that type of like cutting, like tearing people down with like, you know what I mean? Like those types of, well, those forms of slander, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like the way that I did, you know? At least people are not nearly as casual about it, you know? So, um, yeah.
It leads me to want to say the world has gotten a lot kinder in the last few years, very
Or
in a
people
very
just don't want to
specific
get like
way.
they don't want to get Facebook zooped.
Well, have you ever like,
I don't know.
okay, I don't know if you remember, but like in the 90s when like the term PC became a term, like when MTV started like, like really pushing political correctness and people started having like a lot more of an understanding about like what was okay to say and how it like was appropriate to present yourself in public. I feel like um at this point we're experiencing a very similar thing in popular culture where people are learning how to present themselves also online finally,
Hmm.
um, and uh, and that's fine. Alongside that, there's been a very heavy politicization over the last several years, which I think is a very good thing. Also, like like Generation Z or whatever you like to call it, um, are incredibly fucking intelligent and emotionally and politically savvy. And I basically attribute that to them having Generation X parents and millennial parents who are cool and like have their, like their priorities in a much closer alignment than, like a lot of people's boomer parents. This would be a long ass conversation if you want to talk about generational
Where
like
where do you
changes,
see
but
yourself?
you know,
Where do you see yourself as like a mental health advocate, as an individual doing, pushing forward a narrative with your music or your online media? Is it like an advocate
mm,
spot? Is it just being who you are?
I mean, I think the answer is both. Um, I think that I made a direct decision to be open because of two reasons. One is because I'm better at being me when I'm not trying to mask shit. Um, and the second reason is because I saw, I didn't see enough representation. Like when I finally came out as pan, I'd known I was pan for, you know what I mean? Like a long time. I knew I was bi before pan was a term that people, you know what I mean? Like even had, well, at least to come to the fore. I don't know what year that was invented, but like I certainly didn't know it in my 20s and 30s,
Mhm.
and so I didn't want to like claim the, like take the queer torch, like at first because like I didn't want to take away visibility of other people. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like I didn't want to like talk over anyone. At some point I realized like, well, no, this is about visibility. You know what I mean? Like, and then later on, I was just like, you've been queer your whole life. Like, you've been beaten up, like for like, like people assuming that you were gay. You've been called a faggot, like while people were throwing punches and bottles and flicking lit cigarettes at you. You know what I mean? Like your whole entire life, whether you wanted to like admit it openly or even to yourself, because of course there was years of traumatic, experience in my teenage years where I
Mhm.
wasn't comfortable with the way that I was attracted to like, masculine people, like you have lived this life whether you like wanted it or not, like, and at some point I was just like, wow, I'm queer and You know what I mean? Like, and I have a very specific life experience that is very similar to, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
to many other people, like you know, who are queer as well. And those are my people. I am their people. Okay. You know?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of trends in your story that we see in a lot of stories of just people in general with eating disorders. And it usually looks a little bit different for every person, but there's very oftentimes a thread of I am who I am, but who I am is not wanted in my environment. And so there's a lot of like trying to be someone else and then like having to self medicate those feelings of like, even when you do sort of mask and, blend in, then there's this sense of like, but they don't really know me, So like, even when you have people that you meet and you connect to, it's like they don't really know you. Um, and so it's just interesting to see all the different ways that this um, kind of trend shows up in different areas. And I think what you said too about representation is so important because I truly do think that's one of the biggest things that has made such a difference in like countering like diet culture and fat phobia and stuff. Like I remember when I was in college, like we had like Jessica Simpson being like a size 2 and being called fat, you know what I mean? And like I literally thought she was fat like at the time, and now I look back and I'm like, what kind of society did we live in? I don't know, because we have seen so many. I don't know, I love seeing all the diversity of people, and I think like being an example of that, it sucks for the kind of like you said, like it sucks for the first generation of people who stand up and claim that space and sort of take the brunt of like all of society like trying to fight back. But then once they do that, there's this sense of like, wait, there's space now. And then all the other people who relate, all the other people who are like, I was the ugly kid, I was the fat kid, I was the weird queer kid, now they're like, hold on, there's somebody else out there and they're successful and people love them. Maybe I can be that too. I don't know. I think that's really cool. Do you get a lot of that from your fans too? Like, are there people who are
Well, my
like they
fans
feel
are
represented?
great. Holy crap. Yeah, they do. And they tell me all the time. I mean, like, uh, it's actually like it's in so many ways it fills me, and in so many ways it also like demoralizes me because like as much as it's amazing to feel community and to feel like that understanding of like being seen and knowing that other people are like, you know what I mean, like seeing the parallels in what you're sharing, it hurts so much to know that they're going through that and to that they have gone through that. It can be pretty triggering to like go back, you know what I mean, like and feel those things and the again. And like, and another thing is like I oftentimes share those things and I don't want anybody to say like, like to feel like they have to tell me that I'm beautiful now, or to feel like they have to tell me that like they love me, you know what I mean, like because like, and I end up feeling like I'm fishing, which makes me feel really, really shitty because I'm not, like I like just want them to know that like there's somebody else, you know what I mean? Like
It's this
I'm
feeling of like
here.
not thinking
Hey,
I'm worth those compliments of like I like taking a good picture of yourself and maybe if it's like one of 10, I'm like, yeah, this one's good enough. Maybe this I could post this one. Maybe this I feel pretty good. And posting that one and thinking, oh, people are just gonna think I want compliments or I want attention and this and that. Like especially if that's like where the brain is at after like my eating disorder recovery, thinking, oh no, somebody's gonna notice this part about me or somebody's gonna notice that part about me. And then just I don't know, I think coming at it honestly from like a true spot and like, I think one of the most difficult things to feel for a lot of people like that kind of went through a big change in disordered eating is maybe just accepting those compliments is just like fine, I will reluctantly sometimes just take a deep breath and let somebody compliment me or you know
I mean, I think that you're onto something. Like, I mean, I definitely over the years have gotten better at it too, at accepting compliments and just being like, thank you. But for me, there's another layer of uh, of compliments, like acceptance, and that is tied in with humility, and it's got has a lot to do with coming up in the like DIY hardcore scene, and and basically like wanting to make sure that you don't appear as if you're like self-aggrandizing, or that
Hmm.
you're like trying to like, you know what I mean, like be like uh bigger than you are or cooler than you are, and that you're just kind of showing up being who you are. You know what I mean? Like, and that you're like, I'm no better than anybody else, and you don't want to like, you don't want to like, I don't know, sometimes when I get compliments, or when I have to self promote, or I have to say something nice about myself, I feel like I'm like doing a disservice to like this like ingrained like core value, which is to like be humble,
Hmm.
and like, and so that's really hard. And I think that like, you know I actually got caught in a really bad kind of spiral, because I was so bad at accepting compliments, and I spoke so poorly to myself, that when like people started saying nice things about me, I also took it fully in, and started to like be kind of cocky. And especially when people were being dicks to me, or talking, like shit to me, and trying to like marginalize me in some way, I would immediately switch to like, fuck you. Like, you know what? I'm one of the fucking greatest songwriters alive. Fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, have you heard me sing? I'm fucking awesome. And if you don't like me, you can go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and like, let me tell you something. That is not a good look. Never, ever. Like, it's fine to accept a compliment, and it's fine to feel good about yourself. I truly do believe that I'm a great songwriter. I truly do believe that I'm a great singer and a great performer, and that I have a lot to offer the world. You know what I mean? But do I think that like, fuck you, I'm fucking awesome, go fuck yourself? No, I don't. And but I would flip that switch on if somebody else was like putting up, you know what I mean? Like, like putting their shit on me or acting like a dick to me, and I felt like it was either acquiesce to their, you know what I mean, like the things that they were saying, and let it, sink in and feel like garbage,
Hmm.
or push it away with like this like pompous fucking, you know, like shield of self-aggrandizement garbage.
Like as long as our society is forcing everybody to compete, you're like, I'll leverage what I have when I can, kind of as defense, because you know it's a cruel world. But I kind of I if I'm picking up on a theme underneath kind of what you're saying, like a lot of times, like fat activists kind of talk about this too, where it's like they would talk about themselves and they would show up in a larger body, and then people would be like, but you're not really that fat, you're okay, you're not really that, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to make them feel better by saying that they're not what they are, instead of saying like, you can be any size that you want and you still matter, and you're still good and you're still you, and that like the point is that everyone deserves to take up space, period, and you don't have to fit any particular body size or look or appearance or whatever, and you should still matter. um I don't know.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I definitely got that many, many times. And I also gave that to people too. Like, I mean, I had, people who like were interested in being like my lover or something like that, that were bigger, and they would straight up, I had a couple times where they were like, is it because I'm too big? And I would just be like, no, it's this and that. And honestly, like, I sometimes think back about like what my ideas of attractiveness were at that time, and how shallow they were. and I realized that like I had this whole thing like self-worth tied in with like even though I was bigger that I could still attract people who were like who were what everyone else would consider to be good looking people, like were thin and beautiful, like that, like even though I was this like piece of shit, overweight, like snaggletooth, you know what I mean? Like whatever guy that everyone thought was never going to go anywhere, you know what I mean? Like I could still manage to like attract really good looking people and it like honestly it some when I think about it it crushes me because like uh knowing that you are suffering from a very specific set of utterly abhorrent like societal rules and then also pushing them forward, you know what I mean? Like whether willingly or unwillingly is like to me for my personal like core values is utterly soul crushing. Like I one of my biggest ones is do no harm, and like when I think about harm that I've done over the years, like those are like that's a thing that constantly hits me and just knocks me over.
Mhm.
Like is just thinking about different ways that I know that I did harm, like throughout my life. Um and honestly that's one of the reasons why I do the type of activism that I do. Like that's why like I post the things that I post in the way that I post them. And that's why like I spend probably 30 hours a week easily like training other people to be empowered through Muay Thai. And like I don't get paid for it. I literally just do it completely voluntarily. Most of my students are like from the LGBTQIA community, a lot of trans and non-binary people, and you know, I do it because like I love it and because I also feel like there's some sort of, I don't believe in karma, but karmic debt, you know what I mean? Like that like exists where it's like I've gotta, you know what I mean? Like put back. I gotta give back. It's like I want to live my life under park rules where like you always leave it better than you found it.
What
And
what
it's
originally got you into um Muay Thai? Was it like something that you started doing that you found yourself interested in? Was it because I don't know, I don't I'm curious about that and kind of what was that spark that or spark or idea in yourself that was just like maybe maybe I should start doing things this way, maybe I should try something else, maybe I should make this change.
well, okay, so I grew up in the 80s, so I love martial arts. Uh like I grew up with like watching martial arts films and really uh taking that in as a young person for whatever that means. When I was a young person in like quote unquote radical communities, a lot of people who were, I should say, frontline anti-fascist activists were training Muay Thai. And I never did it because I was always um, honestly scared that I would go in there and they would laugh at me because I was, like not masculine enough. I wasn't tough enough and that I didn't, and I was just scared that I would go in there, be bad at it. Everyone would laugh at me and I would just feel smaller when the truth is that like what I wanted to do was go and do it so I could feel like more powerful and less afraid. But that like first gap was there, that first, like ceiling. And when I started to uh, change my life was in 2014, and which was probably the worst year of mental health that I ever had in my entire life. Like my everything uh, that could possibly, well, virtually everything that could go wrong with a person went wrong in my life. And I quit smoking, which was a great thing. So a lot of cool things happened also. I quit smoking. I started my weight loss journey by like going on long walks and you know what I mean, like and doing all sorts of different stuff. And but quitting smoking, I didn't realize that it was a stimulant and that it was also an antidepressant, and that like I had been self-medicating myself forever for uh, like an anxiety based depressive disorder, and it just like came crashing straight into me. And so um as those uh as that year unfolded and things just got worse, like for me professionally, personally, um like aside from these health steps that I was taking, I started to grab a hold of these like matters of health because I realized that all the things that were happening to me that weren't great were things I couldn't control. And the things that I was trying to like change, like that I was trying to do in my career and stuff like that, and my personal life were affected by things that I couldn't control. And I felt so out of control. And the only thing that I could control was like how much I ate and how much exercise I got. And like I know people that they say like it's insane that you could felt like you could control that, because I don't feel like I can control that at all. And so I always like really feel for those people, because there was also a time when I didn't feel like I could do that either. But at that point, it just something clicked in me where I realized, like you can lose weight, you can like get healthier, you quit smoking, just keep not smoking. Like I realized that when I drank, I would have up to sometimes 5 days of serious, like I'm talking like bottom line depression, suicidal thoughts, you know what I mean? Like serious, serious shit. And once I realized and put that two and two together, I quit drinking, you know? And I was like, okay, so these are things that I can do to measurably make my life better. And when I found Muay Thai, like as like a physical outlet, I started realizing that I could expedite my weight loss, expedite my fitness, you know what I mean? Like my cardiovascular fitness, my muscular, fitness, and and I also started getting that serious endorphin boost, you know, and like I chose it because of the association I had before with, you know what I mean, like with people who are activists who are working with this martial art. And I found so much inside of it, and I still always find something new inside of it, that maybe isn't necessarily intended through the sport and martial art, but like it works in this and this and this place, and like uh, I basically, as a result of the amount of empowerment that I felt, and the bandwidth that it created for me to seek a therapist, and eventually to get on um, like psychiatric medicine as well, like to create even more like bandwidth for me to deal with my issues. I decided that I would spend as much time as I could, at least as much time as I was spending training myself, training other people and talking to them about, what I mean, like what they were going through, and trying to see if I could somehow figure out a way to help them, what I mean, like with this thing that I had learned how to do, and, so far, uh, I definitely feel like it's been predominantly, pretty successful in a lot of people's lives, and I'm
That's amazing.
very grateful for it. It's certainly given me a lot also, because when I say that I'm doing this and it's helped a bunch of people, like it helps me helping them, and
Hmm.
like, it allows me to be around people that I feel kinship with, like people who are queer, and people who like share a lot of the time similar values to me, and people who have had mental health and eating disorders and and substance abuse,
That's
just
huge. Yeah.
like issues. And and they I'm able to kind of come together and create a community amongst
Hmm.
other people who have similar experienced similar things. And it's crazy because I always stand there in front of people and I'm like, I know you look at me and you think to yourself like, this is like a strong, kind of like cis performing, hetero performing guy. But I want you to know that I was treated like a beta my entire life, and I was, you know, literally physically abused and verbally abused my entire life. And I am queer, and you know what I mean? And all of these things. And I grew up my entire life being scared of other men, and it caused me to to pull deeper into myself. And then it also caused me to push out in these really
Hmm.
uh, toxic ways, to perform even more in that way. And I just want you to know that I used to be afraid. I used to be fucking, broken, and and I still am. But this has made me feel better about myself. And if you feel it might help you, then I'm here for you, as a resource, and if you have anything, if you've experienced anything like this that you feel like you could relate to, I'm not saying that it's going to be the perfect fit for you, but I am saying that it's possible. And and that if you give me a chance, I'll talk to you and figure out what you're going through so we can figure out what you need. You know what I mean? In order to make sure that you're getting what you need out of it, and through that, and really talking about consent and talking about shared experience and and all these different things, and adhering to those principles, you know what I mean? I've been able to have a pretty good successful run, helping people out, and I'm fucking enormously proud of that, and I'm enormously proud mostly of myself for just not being the same person that I was, because like it could have gone either way.
Hmm.
I could have just become even worse, and you know what I mean? And considering continued sliding into the place that I was. I could have gotten fit and attractive and continued to just use my skinny privilege to, you know what I mean? To hurt other people and become a dominant, sort of hyper masculine, toxic
Hmm.
alpha male, to womanize and to, you know what I mean? And do all these things that, you know what I mean? That I was doing before, but with greater aptitude because of my you know, new very heteronormative privileges, that I had acquired. And I managed to fucking resist it and just keep learning things and keep applying those things. And that's actually probably the thing I'm most proud of, is just that managed to not just slide,
How has
and
this all kind of has this kind of worked its way into your music and into the types of individuals you surround yourself with on stage and tour?
yeah, I mean,
Because you have a
uh
tour coming up as well, right? Like you're starting out pretty soon.
I do. Yeah, the tour that we're doing is called the Roundup. And it's basically what's the word for it? It's an all queer, all country music artist tour.
Heck yeah.
And it's kind of the way that we're doing it is sort of um, a review style. We all share a band, and we all
Oh,
collaborate with each other, and we basically just share the spotlight, all of us. And the headliner is Lavender Country, who is famous because 50 years ago he put out the first openly gay country music album in history.
wow.
And yeah, and also uh, there's a bunch of new folks who are really just starting out, and then myself and Paisley Fields as well. And yeah, so it's Lavender Country, myself, Paisley Fields, Lizzie No, Jet Holden, and Molly Absamwin. And so yeah, it's The last three, they come and go basically in different parts of the tour.
And you're
Um,
teaching Muay Thai in between sets, right?
I okay. So the interesting thing is, I would gladly do that, but I don't know how much interest there is. But interestingly enough, like the backing band, one of the members of the backing band who will be playing bass is a trans fighter who I've been coaching since she basically started her Muay Thai journey. And so we're going to be training every day together because we're both going to be preparing for fights. Her first fight and my fourth fight, and like basically we're going to be dropping into gyms and doing different stuff. Like as we go. And so, yeah, it's very possible that we might like do a community outreach sort of thing where
Hmm.
we try to reach out to the queer and especially the trans community and let them know that we're going to be, like training in those places and hopefully have them come in. I don't know about necessarily me coaching every night or whatever, but there should be some amount of that, some amount of exchange and stuff.
Hmm.
So,
So
yeah.
a lot of our individual listeners are in recovery or currently like going through stuff. And of what advice would you give to someone going through those things as kind of you found your own, it feels like you've really found a sense of purpose in this, kind of the feeling going through it, or how did you, advice that you would
Um,
give someone searching for that?
I would say go easy on yourself. I would say, uh, you know, adhere to the principles of harm reduction, any positive
Yeah.
change, um,
Joy's
and
nodding and her head's almost falling off. Yep, yep, harm reduction. Yep,
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I would say that you know, uh, you you need what you need in the moment that you need it, and like don't beat yourself up for falling off. Like I tell the same thing to people who are suffering from eating disorders and are trying to to lose weight or whatever, because like I'm like, hey, look, like losing weight is fine, but being healthy is way better. You know what I mean? Like it's like you don't worry about losing weight, don't worry about what the scale tells you, worry about how you feel. If you need to eat a whole pizza, you know what I mean? Like do it, don't worry about it. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like it happens. That weight will come off of you. You know what I mean? Like it's like if that's what you really care about, it's you know what I mean? Like it will eventually come off of you, but like you just need to keep on doing things that are physically, like going to be good for you in the long run. So make a bad decision today, make two good decisions tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like whatever. Make two bad decisions today and make half a good decision tomorrow. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Like just do your best to like go easy on yourself and like don't beat yourself up, if you can. It's super hard, it's difficult. That's easier said than fucking done, and all of us probably realize that, but that's what I tell people all the time. Like if you're in recovery, like or if you're still in chaotic drug use, find something that will be good for you. You know what I mean? Like and stick to it. Like it's like if you're like okay, so I'll tell you this small thing before we go, and thank you so much for giving me the space to talk about my own process and what I've been through. I really appreciate it. But some people say that this is a negative way to look at it, but I love it because I'm a punk pragmatic fucking dude. Life is a pile of shit, okay? And every single day some like the dump truck is going to come and dump more shit on you. All right? And instead of getting overwhelmed by the pile of shit and letting it continue to pile up on you, get out a little spade and find the shit pile that looks the smallest, that looks the most easily manageable, and go over there and shovel a little bit of it. And then when you're done shoveling that little pile, go over to the next little pile. And when you're going over, and as you go, just keep on working your way around it until you're like fucking just getting at it and you're doing all of it and you're like, your back is into it and you got a big ass snow shovel. You know what I mean? Like, and you get out the, like, you know what I mean? Like the heavy machinery, and like you're like, you know what I mean? Like you're on a
Austin, this is
construction
way
site, just like
way
pulling
too
that
close
shit
to
off.
home.
You know,
I
like,
was
and
the CNA for like 15 years and took care of like people, and sometimes they're just like, there's a lot of shit, and like, where do you start? Like, you got to start somewhere.
yeah,
You're just like, you gotta,
yeah,
like you said, like, pick a spot, you know, and at
pick the easiest spot.
yeah, when you're done with that,
Pick,
you're like,
you
all right, I
know,
did
Yeah.
something. Like, roll that
mm-hmm,
momentum up.
mm-hmm,
Right on.
yeah,
Because then you have that moment of like satisfaction, like I did that, and then that carries you to the next one, and then carries you to the next
yeah,
That's a
one.
good
And
feeling.
and you know, it's just about waking up the next day and having a slightly smaller pile of shit, or
Or
even the
clothes on the
same size,
floor, or
or you know, like,
dishes in the
yeah,
sink.
whatever. Yeah, it's whatever,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
it is.
So, yeah, that's my philosophy. Life is a pile of shit. Get your shovel and dig.
I like it. I think it's
Yeah.
great advice,
Thank
actually.
you
Yeah.
incredibly much for, taking this time and talking to us and talking to our listeners as well. It's been wonderful getting, getting your perspective. Um, so where can we find you? Where can we hear you? Where can we see you? Where are you at? What are your pluggables?
I am on Instagram, and that's Austin Lucas Music. I am on Facebook as the same / Austin Lucas Music. My website is also either Austin Lucas or Austin Lucas Music. And I'm on every single music streaming service. And if you like Discogs, you can get all my records over in there. And, I'm probably in your favorite indie record store also. Yeah. Twitter is Austin Lucas IND, like Indiana. Yeah, just like stop by and say hi. I'm like pretty reachable, generally fairly communicative, and definitely interested in being friends.
Can vouch for that. I was super excited for your last album to come out and definitely rocking to it for quite a while. It's been amazing just to listen to you and hear you speak on some of these things that I've listened to you sing about for a long time. So thank you again from my heart and our listeners. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
very much appreciated. Again, Eating Disorders Off Topic, ED Off Topic. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, I think. You might be able to find us on TikTok. Go look. Oh, we might be on there.
We're brand new on TikTok. So,
yeah. Otherwise, send us messages.
New talks on the block.
Yeah.
If you like this, definitely
We're the baby
follow us. We're on all the major streamers. Something cool that I found out the other day is I can actually tell my Google to play the newest episode, and it just pops up, and I was like, that's pretty rad. So
that's awfully nice of our future robot overlords to be so kind to you at this point right now.
One time, my Google and my Xbox picked a fight because my Xbox had voice command, and I was like, Xbox, play something, and like Google chimed in, and Google was like, I'd love to, but I'm your Google Assistant, and I was like, oh, shit's going down. This is not good.
Google, oh no, he didn't. Yeah.
So, thank you both very much for your time. So we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you. Take care.